Hey guys, Dusty here. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about how I personally use heart rate when it comes to training. So first of all, there's a ton of different ways that you can track your training. You can use heart rate, like what I'm going to talk about today. You can go by feel or rate of perceived exertion. That's the old school method. You can go by power, so you can have a power meter on your bike, and you can actually run using power now. There's power meters for shoes. And you can also go by speed or pace, which I don't really recommend unless you have a very controlled environment, something like a running track. But for today, I'm just going to talk about how I personally use heart rate when I'm training. And I have already made a video on heart rate zones and how to set them up and all of that. So if you wait till the end of the video, I'll put a little link right about here where you can click and watch that video. Okay, so when I train using heart rate, I train using a heart rate strap. There's also lots of wrist-based sensors out there now, but I prefer the chest strap. And I only train using heart rate. I don't race using my heart rate. There's only been a couple of times where I've actually put the strap on for a race, and even then I didn't pay attention during the race as to what my heart rate is. I tend to like to race off either power or feel. But I have worn it just a couple of times just so I could look back on the data after the race and kind of see where my heart rate was sitting at. So number one way that I use heart rate in my training is during my easy workouts. So I would say this is probably true for the majority of runners and triathletes out there, but on their easy run days, they're probably running too hard for it to be actually considered an easy day. And for my easy runs or easy rides, the majority of the time I'm basing it entirely off heart rate. So I know where my zones are set up, I know where my zone 1 and my zone 2 are, and I try not to cross over from zone 2 into zone 3. I just know that I'm not giving my body the proper adaptation that it needs, and I'm probably going a little bit too hard than what an easy workout is supposed to be for. So hands down, that's the number one thing that I use heart rate for in my training, is to keep it easy during those easy workouts. The second way that I like to use heart rate in my training is pretty unique. I found out this tip from Andy Potts, I think on some YouTube video or something like that, but his coach has him do intervals, and his rest period is when his heart rate hits a certain number. So I really like the idea of doing that, and I've started doing that myself, especially when it comes to track workouts. So just for an example, let's say I'm at the track and I'm doing 10 by 1 kilometer at my best effort. Well, in the past, I might have given myself, let's say, 1 minute rest in between each of the kilometers. I might be fine and fully recovered on even 5, 6, and through 7 of those intervals, but on the last few, my heart rate might not be coming down enough. It might start to stay elevated too much, and I'm not going into the next kilometer interval fully recovered. Say I change the workout and my rest interval is based on where my heart rate is. Let's just say as soon as my heart rate hits 120, then bang, I'm off again for my next kilometer interval. In the first few, I might be leaving in 45 seconds, but the last few, it might take 90 seconds for my heart rate to actually get down. But I know when I'm starting that next interval, I'm more ready for it than had I just rested for 1 minute between each of the intervals. And this is a great way to really see an improvement in your fitness. If you keep doing that over time, say that 10 by 1 kilometer at the track, even if your 1 kilometer times don't necessarily get a whole lot faster, your rest interval in between could get a whole lot faster. You could find that your heart rate's dropping down to 120 much faster a few months after you've been doing this workout. I think a lot of people always think of fitness as, oh, what are my 1 kilometer times? I need to bring them down from 3:30 to 3 minutes. But if you can run 3:30s on very, very little rest, that's some really great fitness. The first time you do that workout, you might be coming in at 3:30, and your average rest time until your heart rate hits 120 is, say, 45 seconds. Well, over a couple of months, it might drop down to 30 seconds. And that's when you know that you're starting to get more efficient, and that's going to result in much better race results. So those are the two biggest ways that I use heart rate in my training. However, a third way is that I'm just mindful of my heart rate, especially when I'm riding indoors on my trainer on Zwift. I have a big TV set up in front of me, and I have all my metrics laid out. I have my cadence, my power, and my heart rate. And I'm always just mindful of my heart rate and I'm making sure that it's matching up with my power zone. So I also have zone 1 for power, zone 2 for power, and so on. And when I'm cycling in zone 2 power wise, I want to make sure that my heart rate is corresponding with that. Now, it doesn't always match up. Heart rate can fluctuate all the time depending on how much sleep I've got, how many coffees I had before the race, if I'm stressed out, if I'm a little bit burnt out from training. All of those things can play factors when it comes to heart rate, but it's just something that I'm always mindful of when I'm riding indoors. So I hope that wasn't too confusing for you. There's a few things in there that you can take away and apply to your own training when it comes to heart rate. And if you want to see the video that I made earlier on heart rate zones and how to set them up, videos right here for you. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and if you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up.